Hello and welcome to the Alpha Software Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I have a cool presentation for you today because we have just come out with a new version of Alpha Anywhere. That's right, we have new version 12.6.6 came out on May 14th, so last week, the newest version. And I want to go over some of the highlights that you'll find in that today. I can also answer any questions you may have. You can type them into the questions box here in the GoToWebinar control panel. You can also send them into guides, GUIDES @alphasoftware.com. Now, just a quick AV check like I do at the beginning of every session. Can you see my screen? Can you hear my voice? If you could just let me know in the questions section, that would be great. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. All right. So here are, so today we're going to be talking about Alpha Anywhere, and we are going to be talking about just some of the highlights that you'll find. You'll find these in the release notes as well. We're going to be talking a little bit about OpenCage geocoding, which is a service for doing geocoding, an advanced message dialog box, and actually that should be the advanced drop-down message dialog box. Let's see if I can't fix that here, but I will later. And that actually brings us to a topic that isn't new, but is really pretty interesting and called chunked responses. And we have an example of that today. We're going to be talking about free threading, the new Quill HTML editor, and how we have combined save and sync into one action if you wish for the list control action bar. So let's get started. We're going to begin with OpenCage geocoding. Now, we've had first of all, what is geocoding? Geocoding is the ability to feed in an address, for example, 5 Main Street, and have it return a latitude and longitude coordinates for you. The reason you would want to do that is if you are using some sort of map control in your application, you're going to want to give it a lat and long value. You don't give it typically a street address, although that is a possibility in some cases, but typically you geocode that just once as opposed to having to look it up each time. Now, we've already had geocoding built into Alpha for some time. We've used Google, and I think we have another one as well. So this isn't really anything new in that sense, but OpenCage is nice to work with just because it gives you another option. You are not locked into a single provider. It happens to be cheaper than Google, especially at high volumes. And when you're doing low volumes, it does not require a credit card for you to get started and do testing and stuff like that. So that is in fact what I did this morning. I opened up my OpenCage account and I built a little, I just went to the interactive window and I created this little statement. So I set my key value. I've changed one of the letters here, by the way, so I'm not going to tell you which one. and then I just basically said geocode address, then the address, and then OpenCage, because that is the service we're going to be using, but there are other ones as well. You can find them in the documentation, and then the key. And what I got back was the latitude and longitude, as well as the what 3-word value. So just kind of a cool new feature. You're not locked into Google. You have other options. Just want to let you know that. It was a pretty simple one to explain. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one here, and that is the Quill Rich Text Editor. And I think I've got a demo for that. I do have a demo for that. So let me pop over to my PC. And we're going to go into my default project. And if you recall, this is the Alpha Test Drive application, and Alpha Test Drive is available up on GitHub. It's a cool app because it's got lots of pieces that you might want to use as a starting framework for building your own application. It has login, it has user administration, it has password reset, things like that. And one of the screens that I built into it was a to-do list, because even if you're not going to use a to-do list, almost always you're going to have something where you're going to want to be able to basically enter in data and get it back. So a to-do list was just a simple example. I'm going to open up that component here, and I've described how it works in other webcasts, by the way. And if we take a look at this, you'll see that if I click on this, I have got a text area where I can type in what I want here. And it's pretty simple. It's just plain text, and probably for a to-do list, that might be fine. But if this was like you were building a message board or a messaging system or something like that, or maybe if you just have document for gathering requirements or things like that, you want to add in other things besides text. You might want to add in pictures. You'd certainly want to do formatting, bold, and things like that, which you can't do with a simple text area. Well, we have had an HTML editor in the product for a little while, but we've introduced a new one, which is the Quill.js, which is the open source JavaScript library, and it is really pretty cool. So I want to show that to you. So that's the boring old one. I'm going to close that down. Let's go take a look at the new one. So in the new one, remember I had a text area that was called task. And then up in here in properties, I told it that I wanted to use the Quill editor. So I went down here. Oops, where's my settings for that? Am I in the right place? Oh, maybe I haven't. Let's take a look at working preview. Okay, yeah, I have put the editor in. So I've installed the editor into this one. It's basically to do that. Here it is. You go into text area properties. You select HTML editor, and then you specify that you want to use the Quill HTML editor. You can make some other modifications as well. I'll show you those modifications in a minute. But let me show you how it works. When I go into working preview or live preview, I'll do working preview, it doesn't matter. I now have, and I'm going to make this a fixed size in another iteration of this, but I now have the ability to have all of these options. I can make things bold. I can change fonts. I can change, I can create different styles here. I can increase and decrease text size. I can do bold, underline. I can insert hyperlinks. I can insert graphics if I want to. Like, for example, let's grab, I don't know what that one is. Well, it looks like a server. That's a cool one. Right into the document. So this is all built in. And then some other things like superscript, postscript, things like that. Now, you might say to yourself, this is fine, but it's overkill. I don't want all of this stuff, and maybe I don't want the people to put videos in. Although in the case of a video, it's really just a link to a video, so it's not going to take up a lot of database space. But the point is that you can in fact customize this toolbar, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. When you're back in design mode, in the text area properties, you just go down here to HTML editor, customize, and if you click on it, it's just basically a list. If you leave this list blank, by default, it's going to put in all of the options. But let's say you just wanted a few, like you wanted just font and maybe bold, and well, font size is good, and underline, and maybe you want to allow them to do a link. All right. So, and that's it. So I would click OK on that, and then I could go back into working preview, and we'll take a look, and we should have a smaller subset of buttons. And sure enough, we do. Now we just have the ones that we want to include. So that's kind of cool. That is the Quill editor. Are there any questions so far? Where is documentation for OpenCage? So the documentation call that I just showed you in my example is listed in the release notes. And so I basically, this is a copy of something that I made from release notes, although I put in my own data and got my own API key, but you'll find those there. And then for geocode address, you'll find that right in the documentation system. So you could just do a link on that. Can we customize the link of the Quill editor? I knew someone was going to ask that question, and I haven't dug down to see how you can do it, but I'm sure you absolutely can do it. So let me put that on my list, or if you're really interested in that, send me an email over to guides@alphasoftware.com. All right, next up, let's go back to my PowerPoint. Next up, we're going to be talking about the advanced drop-down message box. So that is something that you can define in Action JavaScript. For example, you can create a button that opens up one of these advanced message boxes. And you'll see it's pretty simple control. I mean, basically, it's just got the title and the body. It's almost like an alert box. But you do have some options up here as to the type of message box you want to create. And so those types, I have a slide for that. are confirm, deny, cancel, choice, deny, and all these. And you have the options. You don't have to call them red, green, blue. You can make them however you want. I'll show you how you do that. And what's really cool, though, is that this type of message box works really great for doing what are called chunked AJAX callbacks. I'm going to get into the chunked AJAX callbacks in a second, but first, let's take a look at this drop-down message box. All right, so I'm going to pop over here into Alpha Anywhere. We're going to close that down, and this is actually in a different project. Let's go to our webinar project here. And this component, by the way, is based on a component that is mentioned in release notes, and you can download this component from release notes as well. So if you want to play around with this and the chunk response example, you can absolutely do so. But anyway, let me just show you the advanced drop-down message box first. So here I've got a button, and that button is just using AJAX action JavaScript, and the action that I added, I'll just add it again so you can see it, is called advanced drop-down message box. When you select that, you have a few options. You can choose the type of message box, like I showed you here. And some of the message boxes have got multiple options. Some don't, though, like this one, which just says OK. There are no options behind that. But if you say OK and you've got a few other things like red, green, blue, no, whatever, let's use that one. So I'll double click on that. Then what happens is you'll get another item here, another property here called choices, where you can set those choices. And here you set them as a JSON object. So you just say what the value is, in other words, what is going to be returned when they click on that, and then the HTML, how should it be represented on the screen? So in the case of the red, green, blue example, this was the JSON object. So hopefully that makes sense to you and you'd be able to edit that pretty easily. The action is the script that is called when you click on it. And so it gives you some help here, including A5 message hide and prompt cancel and a few other things here that you're going to want to read up on when you're building a script. I'm not going to get too much into that right now, but what you can do with it is you can use this as what's called a chunked response. And then we're going to start talking about that. So first of all, let me show you that button in action. It's a very simple button. Oops, let's go into working preview we can do for this one. And this is just the advanced drop-down message box. I click on it. That's my message, yes, no, and it disappears. Okay, pretty simple. This next one is more interesting. In fact, I'm just going to click the button right now because we're here, but I'm going to do it over in live preview. And this is called a chunked response. I already have a server running. So with this chunked response, why would you do it and what is it? Okay, when you do an AJAX callback, in other words, you want to run an XBasic script back on the server, and when it's done, it's going to return something back to the client. Well, the problem is if you have an XBasic script that takes a while to execute, like maybe it's doing a bunch of things. Maybe once you hit the submit button, it's writing to a database, and then maybe it's calling a webhook or a couple of webhooks. Maybe it's validating data. Maybe it's doing 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 things in the background when you click that button. The problem is that if it takes too long for an AJAX callback to respond back to the request, what ends up happening is that your browser will end up timing out. So that the script won't finish completion. That's no good. So what you do is we use this technique called I'll show it to you right here, called chunk responses. And with chunk responses, it gives you the ability while your script is running to report back to the browser and sort of reset its timer. So each time you do a chunked response, it says, okay, wait, maybe it gives you like 90 seconds before it times out. Well, every time you call a chunk response, it gives you another 90 seconds. So this is the example that you can download from the release notes. And all it does is it runs a it shows you basically how chunk responsing works. It sleeps for 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. But you can imagine this sleep wasn't a sleep. This could be a database write, or it could be a webhook call, or it could be sending an email or something like that. And each time it writes back, it could say, oh, sending email, or it could say, you know, calling webhook, whatever, right here in the advanced. So that is that's very cool, and it's what you basically need to do whenever you have got an XBasic function that you think is going to run too long. So I just wanted to point that out, and it actually works really very well with the chunk response. All right, I hope I didn't confuse you with that one. Okay, cool. Let me see what else I've got on my list. I don't think there's a lot more, but let's see. Yes, there are two other things that I just wanted to point out, not really demos, but really, really cool. The new version of Alpha Anywhere, both the server and I guess Alpha Anywhere itself, is now free threading in both the development server, IIS already sort of had that, and the Alpha Anywhere Classic server. So what does that mean? Well, it used to be that when like 3 or 4 or 5 people are hitting the server at the same time, you would have to wait for the first person's XBasic request to complete before another XBasic request could be processed. So they just had to kind of take turns. As you can imagine, as you load more people up on the server, it's going to get slower and slower. And that's because in the past, XBasic wasn't what was called thread safe, meaning that it couldn't be run on multiple processors on your CPU. Now it can, and the advantage of this is that you should be able to get, in fact, I know you can get significantly more throughput. If you look in the release notes, there's a video there, and I'll cut right to the chase. It seems to boost speed, at least in that example, by at least 4 times. So it's a really significant thing. You'll find it here on the development settings page. Click on performance, and then just go down to free threading, enable free threading. Click on that and restart your server, and you are off to the races with a faster server. All you had to do is click that checkbox. I think that's pretty cool. And then last, possibly least, but something I do all the time when I am creating, especially web applications, is, and I'm in a list control, and I want to save the data, but I also want to synchronize the data back to the backend database. So save it into the list to persist it, synchronizes the database to write it to the database. Those used to always be 2 separate things. There's a reason for that. It's perfect for like offline mode, right? You want to save a whole bunch of stuff, and then when you say return to a place where you've got a cell signal or Wi-Fi signal, you can submit it. But in a web application, you always have signal. So very often I just combine them into one button. So this is now an option. You can say combine the save and synchronize into a single action when you are building your list action bar builder. I just wanted to point that out because it's something you would probably have easily missed here in this huge list of controls, but I know it'll save you time like me who puts them together all the time. So that was just a real simple one. Last question I got here. Oh, is Alpha Cloud automatically have free threading turned on for the appropriate build? Well, free threading's huge benefit would be with the classic server because IIS already had the ability to do that and to multitask. So it wasn't necessary for Alpha Cloud. We had come up with a different solution. So I don't think it's going to really buy you anything in that. But you know what? Before I say that for sure, I will research that and I will let you guys know next week. All right. I think there is this. Is there an option in? Let me see. Oh, I see part of a question. Oh, is there an option in project properties? There is an option in project properties. Oh, yes, to turn on free threading. Okay, great, cool. Does anyone have any other questions here today? Doesn't look like it. Well, hey, download the latest version, check out the release notes, play with those features. If you've got questions, comments, whatever, send them to guides, GUIDES @alphasoftware.com. Thank you very much for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you at our next Alpha Software demo and Q&A webcast. Take care and bye-bye.